Welcome, everyone, to the Crexi Podcast. We are here live at Beth Azor's Women in Real Estate Investing Summit. We have Karly Iacono on the podcast. Again, we're so happy to have you back. It's been a while. What's
It's
new?
been a few years, I feel like.
Yeah, I think 2023 is maybe the last time we had you on the
2 years,
podcast.
I feel like. I think
Oh,
everything
gosh.
is new in the last 2 years, actually,
Yeah.
right? In the
Yeah.
world, the market.
Yes.
So,
Things
start
sure
from
have developed
zero.
in the
Yeah.
last 2 years. Absolutely.
Fair.
So, we did a deep dive with you then. What's new in your world? Tell us a little bit about, what's going on in your life, in your career. What's updating?
It's been an interesting 2 years in the market because we had the spike in interest rates. We had certain tenant bankruptcies. I feel like the whole net lease market has gone through sort of a renaissance of what deals are trading. So that's been really interesting. Massive bifurcation in pricing. We have some cap rates expanding, especially in the drugstore and the discount store space, 7, 8 cap plus.
Yeah.
And then we have other assets that are really compressing on cap rates, like your QSR, your gas convenience, are down into the low to mid 5 caps. So it's just been a very interesting time to figure out where deals trade, who the buyers are, and what makes sense. But it keeps the business interesting. We're definitely busy and grateful to be doing deals.
Absolutely. I'm curious, in all these different subtypes, what patterns are you seeing emerging when you're working with sellers, when you're talking to buyers? Like, what are the key things that they're really focusing on in these different markets? And why do you think that is?
So sellers are hyper-focused on pricing. I don't think that's new, right? That's from the age of time. Sellers are trying to squeeze every dollar out. The difference is a lot of people bought at peak pricing 3-4 years ago. So if they want to sell or they need to sell because they have debt coming due, they're really, really trying to squeeze every last dollar out to, in some cases, just break even.
Good.
So that's what's happening from the seller side. A lot of developers are getting pinched on construction costs, rising cap rates. So they're, again, very focused on maximizing proceeds. Buyers, on the other hand, are kind of split into two groups. We have certain groups that are looking for yield. They want a return above interest rates, and the cash flow is very important to them, and that's why they're going into commercial real estate. We have other groups that are concerned about the volatility of the stock market, which has been wild the last few months.
It sure has.
Exactly. And they're saying, we made a lot of money in the stock market. Let's take some of those proceeds and just sit out this wild ride for maybe the next few years. And let's kind of park the money in commercial real estate.
Okay.
And net lease, which is passive, in some cases, very stable, safe, right? And they're being very picky with assets, more for equity preservation than for cash flow. So really depends what their goal is.
It's a more defensive posture. That's an interesting point of view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of like, let's park this in a great market and let's just avoid some of the drama and come back to it in,
Are you seeing
years.
a lot of opportunities come available for those type of interest groups? Because, as you mentioned, cap rates are really squishing down.
Yeah.
Like, are they happy to go with that kind of a deal? Or what are you seeing in terms of their underwriting?
So there's a heightened increase on markets. So we used to have, really the first thing people would look at was the duration of the lease term and the credit of the tenant. Now that's shifted to how core is this market? How replaceable is the rent? So it's kind of flipped to have a focus on the real estate fundamentals, which sounds funny when you're talking about real estate. Of course it's about real estate, but net lease for so long it was about the tenancy. And it still is. But now I think the number one factor is the security of the location, traffic, demographics, growth, all of that. And then investors are backing into, okay, do I believe in this tenant? Do I think they'll be here in 10 years from a business model perspective? If they're not, can I replace that rent or can I improve it? So they're coming at it from sort of the opposite evaluation process. And the ones that are looking for stability that we just mentioned, hyper-focused on Florida, Texas, Arizona, areas of high growth, and some of your core markets.
That's so interesting. I'm very curious to see kind of how that plays out over the next few years.
A lot of demand.
Yeah, I'm sure. It keeps your phones busy, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, lots of changes in the last couple of years. One of them is AI and technology. So from your purview, we had you on recently with the launch of our lease comms, which is very fun.
Yeah.
How have you seen technology, especially in the last couple of years, change the commercial real estate landscape? And that can be from, how our tenants using it to how our brokerage is using it. And what do you think the long tail impacts of that will be?
I think we could have this conversation every 2 weeks, forget every 2 years, because things are changing so fast.
Yeah.
I just came from another conference, and there was multiple sessions from very large companies like Blackstone, Beth Azor, talking about technology and the impacts to commercial real estate. And when you have companies at that scale bringing it up, this is really going to make a big impact.
Blackstone has like a new chief AI officer, right?
I think so.
Like that? Yeah.
Just amazing how of course how dialed they are, how dialed in they are, but amazing that this is really at the forefront. So I think it's so broad right now. It's really hard to pick one area. What we're talking about week to week is a generative AI, right? The conversational AI. The fact that I think soon, and I think you guys are at the forefront of this, of course, search is not just limited to checkboxes. And that's a huge change across a lot of different data platforms. When you can type in what you're looking for, you can type in questions and get answers instead of just getting a report. So I think that's going to change the way that brokers, that owners, everybody really uses and looks at data. It's going to become a lot more personalized very quickly and a lot more accessible.
Absolutely, and faster.
Exactly.
And easier to action on.
And that's what makes it useful, right? It's wonderful to have a massive international data set, but if you can't do anything with the data, or you're limited to just kind of looking at a few comps and you can't see trends, it's not that helpful.
Yeah.
So it's how you use the data, not just having it, that I think is so important, and that's what is changing right now.
Somebody said earlier in these conversations, it's all entertainment. Learning is entertainment unless you do something with it, which I thought was really...
I like that.
I don't know, it stuck with me. I remembered it. So kind of in that line, it's always a shifting landscape. It's a very much shifting landscape right now in these last 2 years.
Right.
We're at this Women's Investor Summit. So with all the shifts happening, somebody earlier also mentioned the silver hair tsunami.
Interesting.
A lot of people might
Retiring.
be retiring in the next several years. So how can young people, and especially women, look at the commercial real estate space, find a place or opportunity within it, and really, how would you suggest they go about doing that and think about entering this kind of space?
So I have two points on that, two answers. First, we're at a Women's Investor Summit, which is very different than a traditional conference, right?
Absolutely.
Everyone here is here because they want to invest themselves. So we're not selling deals to large companies. We're all here saying we want to be investors in the industry, not just participants from our job perspective. And I think that shift is so important because it makes commercial real estate more tangible to everybody, right? It's not just something that trades, that's out of reach. It becomes, I think, part of the landscape. And the more we can break commercial real estate down to be something that's accessible from an investment perspective, I think the more people will be interested in the industry because they'll have exposure to it. So from the investing side, we're talking about GP and LP structures. We're talking about rolling commissions, and we're talking about development and land banking, all these different things, right? There's a lot of sessions, as you know. So I think that's important to figure out how to get people in the industry already to invest themselves, number one. From the next generation, it's having mentors, it's all the same stuff. It's being in the office, it's spending time with people who might be retiring in really all different levels of these organizations, and just starting, not worrying about here's the entire career path, just saying, here's my first step. And then I know through networking and connections, I'm going to have growth. So I think career paths in banking and law are so linear, right? It's very clear. You go in, you get this, and you're this level and that level, right? You can sit down and say, here's my next 20 years if you were to stay at one company. Commercial real estate isn't always that linear. And I think because of that, it makes it a little scary to enter as a new college grad because the path is less clear. So I would say just start with a good company, start interviewing and get into the industry, and you'll be amazed where it can take you.
Yeah. Say yes, be open-minded, work hard, right?
And be in the office, show up,
Yes,
do the work in person, ideally.
Yeah, getting that FaceTime is definitely crucial.
It is, yeah.
And then, I want to be mindful of our time. We still have a lot of conference left to get to. But I asked this question earlier. You're listening in the room. I was like, get ready, we're going to ask you. But I'll ask both, actually. If you could go back in time and give your 20 years ago self any words of advice, what would you tell your 20 years younger self?
To start in commercial real estate instead of finance. Like I just mentioned, I didn't know it was an option. I didn't have a path. So I took a job in finance that I didn't love because it seemed like the right thing to do. So I wish I would have known about all the different career options. Number one, I wish I would have started in the industry before I did. And then just not being afraid to reach out and pivot and learn instead of feeling like I had to just keep taking the next step on a rigid path.
Mm-hmm. Conversely, if you could take that time machine and go 20 years in the future from now, what would you ask 20 years older Karly, and what do you think she would say to you?
I think the most important thing is there's not a perfect time for most things, right? When you're in a fast-paced industry, hopefully a successful career, you're moving, shaking, nothing ever stops in our industry. Investing on your own or making a shift, whatever that looks like, seems very, very difficult because there's no perfect time. You're never stationary, so change is hard. But if there's something you want to do, you just got to do it. Just start. And I think, for me, that's investing personally, buying deals, being part of this, building up the passive income, and taking time to focus on that from the investor side. I wish I would have started earlier again, but I want 20-year me to look back and be like, all right, you built up the portfolio, like, good job. So finding that time.
Absolutely. Well, I got to ask, since you hinted at it, what is next for you? You are at this Women's Investor Real Estate Summit. So
definitely finding
for?
more partners to invest with, people that I trust, deals that I like. We've got a few that we're looking at. So putting together groups that I think will be good partners for the long term and making those connections.
Yeah. And I think I asked you this last time too, but if you had $50 million handed to you, it's 2 years since I've asked you last, so maybe it's changed.
I don't remember what I said last time, but
I don't either.
I wish I did, right? Don't compare the two and you're going to be like, that's the same answer.
Where
what would I buy?
That investment?
So that's such a tough question because it depends on what your time availability is, what your risk tolerance is, where you are in life, right? So I don't think I can answer it for me personally right now, but it's hard to say this is like the perfect thing for everybody. I still like net lease, but I'm kind of biased, obviously, because that's what I look at every day. I think unanchored retail is really interesting right now, especially if you have a few national tenants, you have some local tenants to give you that sense of community. I think if you get the right tenant mix, neighborhood retail is fantastic. And then I also like medical net lease, which I might have said 2 years ago because I've liked that for a while. Those are like your dental office, right? Your freestanding single tenant medical net lease buildings, I think, have a really interesting stickiness to them that some other parts of the market don't have.
Love it. That works. Oh, Karly, it's so awesome to have you back on. Again, where can people get in touch if they want to connect with you?
So I would love for people to follow the podcast, Commercial Real Estate Now. And then I hope I'm very easy to find. You can just Google my name or find me on LinkedIn, where I seem to spend a good amount of time as well. It's Karly, Karly, Iacono, Iacono.
Love it. She is very Googleable, listeners. So please Google her after listening.
Yeah.
So good to have you back on.
Thank you so much. Great to see you.
Good to see you.